Hello, my little scouts, or should I say my big scouts. This is an important day. It's an important lesson for you. This is our Whittling Chip, and this is where we become a little bit older and a little bit more responsible. Now, the thing that I told the group when we did this as a group, why do you think that I could trust you with a pocket knife? If you remember our scout law, it is a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, and all the rest. But trustworthy is the first thing. And I trust that if I give you the control over this knife, you must be properly taught, of course. But granted that you were properly taught, if I let you carry this around, I trust that you're going to do the right thing with it. Now, in order to carry that around, you are going to need this. This is your whittling chip. This is what we're going to be working on. It is a license for you to carry around this pocket knife. And it's got the pocket knife pledge right on here, which we're going to read in a second. There are a few things to know about this. If you have your pocket knife on you, this must be on you at all times as well. And obviously, we're not going to carry knives to school for sure. Definitely not. We're not going to carry them to the grocery store or a concert or anything like that. If you go hiking, camping, maybe the hardware store, maybe that's pushing it. But Cub Scout events, you can wear your knife at Cub Scout events, and this is your license to do so. If you violate this license, if any of the things that I teach you today I do not see happening, I get to cut a corner of this off. And if you lose all four corners, you lose this license. I tear it up and we start over from the beginning and we go through all these lessons again, which I don't think you'll like. But this is it. This is the Whittling Chip card. And at the end of this whole lesson, you will have earned this. There are a few things to go over, safety being number one. Now, I'm about to do something that is absolutely shocking. And I didn't get to do this in front of the kids, and that reason will be evident to you when I do this. But I did say it verbally, and the advantage of learning this online is that I can show you. My Cub Scout leader told me this fact when I was your age and when I was growing up, and that fact has stuck with me I am 40-something years old now, and that lesson has carried with me all through this whole time. Every time I pick up a knife, I remember this, and this is an incredibly important lesson. On the table, I'm going to put my pocket knife, the pocket knife here on the table. Now, I am going to shock you right now by pulling out this. It is a .357 revolver made by Smith & Wesson, and I'm going to put this on the table. Two weapons on the table in front of me. Which of these two weapons do you think is more dangerous right now on this table in front of me? Unless you are insane, you will probably say the revolver, which is what each of the kids said when we went over this lesson verbally. But listen to this. Right now, in this situation, you would be wrong. And here's why. This is my own sidearm, and I know for a fact that it is unloaded. I went through this before I did this lesson. It's unloaded. It's uncocked. There's nothing. This is about as dangerous as this can of beans right now. If you came up to me, I could hit you over the head with it, maybe. I could throw it at you, just the same as I could do with this can, but it is not loaded, and it is currently, in its current form, not dangerous. This thing right here is never unloaded. It is always sharp. It is always ready to cut. So, when you see a knife, remember that you are holding an actual weapon, and you need to treat it with the respect due of what this is. It is in fact a tool and not a toy, and part of our pocket knife pledge is going to cover that. So a pocket knife pledge. I will treat my pocket knife with the respect due a useful tool. I will always close my pocket knife and put it away when not in use. Here we go. I will not use my pocket knife when it might injure someone near me. I promise never to throw my pocket knife for any reason. Okay? And I will use my pocket knife in a safe manner at all times. What's a safe manner? Let's go over it. Now, if you're going to be cutting things, you have to make sure that there's nobody around when you cut. This is called your circle of safety, and I know you've probably heard the term blood circle as well, but circle of safety is how I learned it, and it's how I like to teach it. And for that, you're going to take your knife, not open, it's going to be closed, and you're going to hold it out in front of you, about as far as you can get it to go. And you're going to turn around in a circle, and this is your circle of safety. And if anyone is in your circle of safety, you know it is not safe to open your knife. If everyone's out of your circle, now you know it's safe. And for the first couple of years, I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to want to see this, okay? I want to see your circle of safety every time when we're camping and you want to carve a stick, or you need to open a can of something or something. If your blade comes out, I want to see that circle of safety at all times. Now, here's the crazy part about circle of safety. Let's say you've done your circle of safety. Nobody's in it. You're cutting. And somebody walks into your circle of safety. Who's responsible for making sure that they are safe? Is it them because they entered your circle? The answer is no, it's you. If somebody enters your circle while you are cutting, you need to stop cutting, put your blade away, and say, hey, you're in my circle of safety. Once they leave, you can do your circle of safety again and take that back out. So how to open, how to close. This is one of the harder things, especially for Cub Scouts. Mostly because your nails are probably short and maybe not as strong as mine might be. But what you're probably going to want to do is use your thumbnail. There's a little groove on your blade, and you're going to want to use your thumbnail to open the blade. Once your blade is open, you're going to use the back of your palm, and you're going to put it against the flat side of the blade. Now, before you do that, make sure that you know what side is sharp. The part that has the little thing for your thumb, that's going to be the dull side, and the other part's going to be your sharp side. And just by looking at it for a minute, you can probably tell. The sharp side has like a shiny edge on it. So you're going to put your palm against the non-sharp side, and you're going to push to close, but watch what happens. If I have my hand here like this, and I push to close, what is that blade going to do to my fingers? That's a bad scene. We do not want to see that. I do not want to see that. So before you use your palm, you're going to turn this hand up and cradle your knife like this. Notice my fingers are not in front of where that blade goes. Now that I have the knife like this, I can use the back of this palm. I can push on the knife, and the knife will close. Okay? It's all about using that palm. You're going to use your fingernails to open it and your palm to close it. Okay? That is a safe way of closing and opening a knife. Now, you'll notice that I have more than just a blade on this pocket knife. There's a bunch of other little tools on here as well. This is what you would call a multi-tool. I have a couple of different tools here, but I do tend to prefer multi-tools. But look how thin this one is. Look how light this one is. And look at this guy, and look at how many things are on this guy. This guy's amazing. There's tools coming out all over the place. It has pliers. It's got everything you could need, including a knife and a saw. And then this one right here is enormous as well. This one's got, all kinds of nail files and magnifying glasses and everything. Now, of the tools that I've shown you, and let's see if I can lay them out for you to see. Let's see. Here is the really, really super large. This one is also pretty big. Then we have this really thin one. I'll put that here. And then we have this one is really thin as well. Now, which of these four do you think that I would take out with me if I were going for a hike or otherwise using a knife? Now, if you were anything like the Cub Scouts that we had gathered, they picked out this guy right here. This is my giant one with a ton of tools on it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. You would be wrong. I'm not going to take this with me. And I'm telling you this lesson for a reason. I bought this knife because I like stuff. I like a lot of stuff. And I thought this was the coolest thing in the world. It does everything. But carrying it around, it's big. It's heavy. When I go to use it, it's a good thing my hands are a little bit bigger because it's hard to hold it. And I lost this knife. I thought it was a goner. And when I lost it, I bought this one as a replacement, a little bit thinner. I found this one, but guess which one I take with me? I take the thinner one. It's easier to hold, it's easier to use, it's easier for me to fit into my belt pouch and for me to take on hikes. This one's even thinner. This one belongs to my son, Owen. And it has essential tools on it. It has two blades, small and a big, and it has some screwdrivers, bottle openers, can openers. This is fantastic. This is an amazing knife. I love this knife. I'm jealous of this knife. It's pretty fantastic. So the lesson here, thinner can be better. Now, I also like having the option of the big one if I'm going to go on a survival trip or something like that. This little thin one also has a feature that I want to share with you. I'll bring this a little closer into camera. This is the lock. So there's like a little tab that you see on the top here. Watch what happens when I open this knife. There's a click, a real distinct click. And I'm going to push on this knife all that I want as hard as I can, and it's not going to close. This is actually a pretty good safety feature because when you're closing it, when you're carving, if you do something wrong and maybe you hit the back of the knife, it's not going to close on your fingers. We actually had a Cub Scout that happened to where it closed on his fingers and he got cut a little bit. Now, if you have a knife, you're going to get cut. Trust me, you're going to bleed. But better if you don't, of course. And in this case, this little lock tab, if you hold it down with your thumb, now I'm free to close the blade. Otherwise, the blade wouldn't close. And now it's back in its locked position. So, locked, I cannot close it no matter what I do. Push the lock down, and now it closes. It's a really good safety feature. It's a little bit more to remember, maybe a little bit harder, but once you get used to it, absolutely fantastic. All right, these are all multi-tools, but what you might see is a jackknife. A jackknife is a blade that's very similar to that, very thin. All it has is a knife. This is an amazing tool as well, and especially back in the early days of sailing in the late 1800s and things like that, every single sailor had one of these knives. They used it for cutting lines and cutting rope, things like that. They put it in their boot. It's a hugely important piece of equipment. And if that's all you prefer, that's super cool too. Let's see about multi-tool and then these guys right here. These are real beasts with the pliers in the middle. I'll talk about multi-tool. Anyway, different types of knives. But let's go over a couple of things to do with your knife. So first of all, we are not going to cut wood right off the bat. We're going to cut soap. Soap is easy to use. You should have a block of soap. If you don't, grab one. And basically the rule that I'm going to go over right now is the number one safety rule when cutting, besides your blood circle, your safety circle, is to cut away from you at all times. Always cut away from you. Now there's an exception to this rule, but I'm not going to tell you right now. I'm going to wait till you're older. I'm going to wait till you get your whittling chip, and then I'll tell you that exception. But right now, let's pretend that this is 100% true, because it really is 99.999% true. Cut away from you at all times. Okay? You can see what I'm doing is I'm not carving. You carve a pumpkin, you carve a pie, you carve a cake, but you don't carve with a pocket knife, okay? What you do is you shave, you whittle, little piece by little piece. I'm scraping it across the top like this. Little tiny pieces, little tiny pieces. Now this is going to help round out my shape. It's going to help me carve into the shape that I really wanted. But if you want more of a complicated shape, so by the way, play with that, practice that, pause this video, and then come back. When you're ready, we can talk about something that's called a stop cut. So for a stop cut, you're going to kind of rock your blade back and forth just a little bit until there's a line on the soap. Kind of, it's going to be hard for you to see on the camera, but trust me, I've carved a little bit of a shallow thing into the soap. And now what I'm going to do, still cutting away from me, is I'm going to move that blade forward towards that line. And what you'll find is that your blade stops when it hits that line. Like a cliff, walking into a cliff. It's not going to go into the cliff, it's just going to stop when it gets to the cliff. And that way, you can start to make more complicated shapes, where maybe this is the ear of a bear, or maybe it's the, I don't know, help me out, the nose on an owl or something, I don't know. Anyway, when you're working with wood, so soap, I just chipped off the piece I didn't want to chip off, and that's a danger when you're working with soap. But when you're working with wood, this is an amazing tool. This is fantastic. It really does help give you really good shapes in there. Okay, so that's your stop cut. Between just the regular cut, the regular shaving cut, and your stop cut, you can make just about anything that you need to. And I would love to see that. I'd love to see you carve a piece of soap into the shape of a wolf head or a bear head or an arrow head or a circle. If you if you just want to cut simple geometric shapes, that counts. As long as you're cutting, and as long as you're cutting away from you and remembering not to carve into the thing. Now, a few minutes ago when I was showing you the stop cut, I did something that I never ever want to see you do. And I'm going to do it again right now. I just put my knife down. I just put my knife down and it's open. It's even in the pocket knife pledge. I don't want you to do that. Okay? When your knife goes down, when you're done with your knife, first of all, close it. If I see you do this, I might still talk to you about it, but I'm not going to be mad. What you really should do is put it right back in the pouch that it came from, or in your pocket if you don't have a pouch. But never leave it on the table open. That is a recipe for disaster. Somebody's going to come along and hurt themselves. So we covered a little bit of cutting, a little shaving, and a little stop cut. Here's another thing you need to learn is string. You should also have a piece of string. And the rule here, it's a giant noodle, right? This is really hard to cut into. I could give it a try. I could get this knife and I could try and do this. Maybe I could put it on the ground and carve at it. I don't know. Either way, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to manage. So here's the trick to using a piece of string. Wherever you need it to be cut, form a loop like that, a little round loop, if you can see that. And then insert your knife into the loop, but make sure that that knife is facing away from you. Remember, cut away from you always. So when you put your knife into your loop, make sure that your knife is facing away from you. Now you can pull and it should cut. But if your knife's not as sharp as you want it to be, like this one actually is not doing it, just wiggle it back and forth ever so slightly. And that will cut your string. Now if you're cutting a rope, you're definitely going to need to wiggle back and forth. That's going to be a bit challenging. Piece of string, maybe not quite as much. So there's my loop. Knife goes in. I cut away from me at all times. And now my string has been cut. Okay? All right. Practice that, of course, and come back when you're ready. So we've carved a little bit of soap. We've cut a little bit of string. Another thing that we're going to need to go over is opening a box. This can actually be tricky because here is where I see the most mistakes being made on cutting towards you instead of away from you. Remember to always cut away from you, okay? First of all, safety circle, make sure nobody's around, right? Then open your knife as we discussed before using a fingernail. Now there's tape on this box and there's tape on the sides as well. First, what we're going to need to do is figure out where the tape is and how the box actually opens. You can just do that by looking at it. But now we're going to need to stick our knife in. If I take my knife and I stick it in like this, that's not good. I'm going to damage the goods that are in here. Even if I stick it in like this, at an angle like this, that's actually bad also. I might cut into the electronics that are in there. I want to keep this knife as flat as possible. Flat as possible. And I'm going to stick it right in this groove between the two pieces of cardboard and slide it forward, which will cut the tape on that side. I do the same thing on the other side. Remember, cutting away from me. So my knife is positioned away from me and I slide it across, cutting the tape. Remember, I'm cutting away from me. Now here on the front, I could cut this way, but is that cutting away from me? That's actually still sideways. It can be dangerous. I'd rather see you turn the box like this and then put your knife in, remember, as flat as possible so you're not going in at an angle and damaging your equipment. Flat as possible, slide that all the way across and cut that piece of tape. Once the tape has been cut, close your knife, put it back in your belt, and now you are free to open your box. You might get a lot of practice at this at Christmas. If you've actually earned your Whittling Chip, I encourage you to ask your parents if you can try opening a box or two like that. Okay. Now, one of the last things I'm going to show you, it's the last thing before we move on to carving a piece of wood, which we've already talked about. But the last thing I'm going to show you is the hardest thing to do with a pocket knife. And I have met plenty of adults that cannot do this. As a matter of fact, ask your parents and see if they can do this. It's very possible, even probable, that they'll say no, they don't know how to do this. And that is opening a can with the can opener on your multi-tool, if you have a multi-tool. Here's the can opener. It is sharp on one side, right here, super duper sharp. Now, if you compare that with the screwdriver bottle opener, it looks very similar, doesn't it? Except this isn't sharp, this is the screwdriver part, and this is just a tiny little hook right here, bottle opener. So this is not your bottle opener, this is not your can opener, this is your bottle opener if you want to open a bottle of that delicious Coke from Mexico with this real sugar in it, and that's what you're going to want. But this right here, this is your can opener. It actually has a sharp tooth at the bottom along with a hook shape. So that hook shape is going to be the most important thing for us to talk about right now, because it is how you're going to begin this whole process of cutting open the can. What you need to do is get that hook under the lip of the can. If I slide my finger up the can, it stops right here because there's a bit of a lip. And I want this hook on the bottom to hook the bottom of the can. Okay? Now I'm going to pull up on my knife and it's not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, look at that. It's even closing. It's kind of closing on itself because it's so well hooked. That's fantastic. That's a good hook. What you want is to get your hook under there, and then you're going to rotate your knife up so that the sharp part, this shark tooth blade right here, digs into the can. When you lift up, you can hear and see that on this can there is a tiny, tiny cut. There's a tiny little hole right there. And that's exactly what you want. That's how you're going to start this entire process. So once you have a tiny hole, well, you're going to do the same thing again. You need to take that little lip of the knife under the can, but you're going to do it right above the hole. And you're going to put the next hole right in front of that one. And the next hole is going to go right in front of that one. And the next hole is in front of that one. Now, if you find that you're having trouble, I want you to look at the angle of your knife. I'll bet that you're probably going like this. Look at the angle between my knife and that can. It's a right angle. That's not going to be any help to you at all. It's just going to make a cool snowflake pattern on the top of your can. You want that piece of knife to go all the way to the side. Look at that. I can even pull on this and it's not coming off. It's hooked on the bottom and it's all the way against the side on the top of this knife. Okay? That's the best way to cut a can. If you ride underneath and on the side of this can all the way around, cut by cut, you, my friend, are having dinner tonight. Okay? That's how you do a can opener. It is incredibly hard. Don't beat yourself up if you can't do it. We can always work on this again. But next time we go camping, we can have you open the beans for the chili or whatever it is. Very hard, but it's totally possible. Don't give up. Keep giving it a try. Remember, hook on the bottom, all the way against the side of the can, lift up. Okay? All the way around the can. Okay. That's can opening. That's box opening. String cutting. Soap cutting. Let's talk about wood. Wood is exactly the same as the soap, except a little tougher. What you're going to find is that you could cheat a little with the soap because you can cut into it pretty far. Whereas this, you are not going to be able to carve the piece of wood. You are going to have to whittle. You're going to have to take tiny little shavings. Look at how tiny the shavings are that are coming off of this piece of wood. Tiny. Right? That's the best way to do it. Tiny little pieces. Your stop cut is going to be the same. You're going to rock your knife back and forth a little until you have a bit of a line there. I don't know if you can see that. And we're just going to cut towards that line ever so slightly. You hear that noise? That's actually the knife sliding up against that stop cut. And what you'll find after a minute or two of me doing this is that there's a really good clear point where this cut stops. And that's going to be amazing. Oh, I'm going to put my knife down again. That's going to be amazing for cutting complicated shapes. Like I say, you know, maybe the top of a T. Maybe you're making a T shape and you want to keep this part from getting cut, but you want to cut away down here. Okay? So stop cut's the same on a piece of wood. And really, in order to earn your whittling chip, you have to carve two things. Soap counts. So if you carve the first thing out of soap, anything will do, like I say, just a geometric shape will do. And you carve your second thing out of wood, you are well poised to take on the world. One other thing you might be able to do with a knife and wood is if you have a pencil at home that's not very sharp, practice cutting the pencil and just shaving the pieces off on the front. There's actually these construction pencils that are really good experiments for cutting wood. These don't fit in a pencil sharpener. So one really good idea maybe here is to grab your knife and just give it a try, shaving until you get to the actual pencil lead. All right? Remember, you're always cutting away from you, always, always. And the less wood that you take off, the less you're carving, the easier this is going to be. Eventually, I'm going to whittle my way down to wood, and guess what? That's, up to the lead, and that is going to be enough to earn this whittling chip. If you can sharpen a pencil, you can do all kinds of things out in the wild. You can make your own kindling, you can make your own deadfalls for animals, you can make your own spears and things. That's all you need to do right there. Look at that. I just earned my whittling chip. I carved a pencil. All right? Now, cleaning your knife, you're going to need to clean this, especially after you do your soap. You're going to get a rag wet and fold the rag so it protects your hands. And from behind, from the dull side, just clean the knife up and down a little bit. Make sure you're not putting your fingers over the sharp side. That could hurt. But soap and water, just soap and water will do. Don't put it in the refrigerator. You can put it in the refrigerator, but I don't know why you would. Don't put it in the washing machine. Okay, use soap and water, warm soap and water from the sink. And these are waterproof generally, except that obviously if you leave this out in the rain, it's gonna start rusting. So make sure you take care of your knife. Keep it in your pouch. Keep the pouch on your belt, and you'll be good to go. So that's everything. That's enough for you to earn this this whittling chip. Remember the rules of the whittling chip. You're going to want this on your person at all time. Remember, I get to cut corners off if you're violating rules. And remember your pocket knife pledge. I'll have a copy of this as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good job. Great working with you virtually, and good luck. And remember, I trust you because a scout is trustworthy. Thank you.